Okay, so hi everybody. I'm making three videos because I think that I would like to segregate all the information that I want to put out as what you should be doing before interview season. That is after you finish all the step exams, and what you should be doing during interview season, and then what are you going to do after interview season. Because after interview season, you still have some amount of communication with the programs you've interviewed with, and also in that video, I would want to talk about what I realized after interview season, and even when I got my result, what I made of it, basically. What I'm trying to put out in that video would be what helped me match into the program that I matched into. So yeah, the the first two videos are going to be focused on what you should be doing after you finish your step exams. Usually it's CK or CS, and usually I would say it's around June, July. So before I jump into the first video, which is going to be about what you should be doing pre-interview season, I want to just highlight the general timeline. I know that in the this year 2020, the ERAS cycle has been pushed to October 21st. So I'm gonna try to keep it with the traditional timeline because that's how I went about it. And in general, I don't think there would be a lot of changes when it comes to the pre-interview preparation that you should be doing. So yeah, so the general timeline goes as such that you would ideally, rather you should have taken your last step exam by June or July. July 15th should be the last date that you should be targeting if you're going to be applying that particular year. uh, so what I did is basically I took my last exam on June 4th, which was clinical skills, and after that I did two rotations, which were one was in cardiology and one was in internal medicine. And I also started passive preparation for interview season and the application cycle during June and July. Actively, I started preparing in August, and I would say that 1 month is a good amount of time, and you should be rather keeping 1 month as a whole dedicated purely to your application, because I'm gonna get to it in the second video as to how you'll be preparing for your application. So in my year, ERAS opened on September 5th. So ERAS normally opens on September 5th, but programs get access to your application on September 15th. So what that means to say is that whether you submit your application on September 5th or you submit it on September 15th, the programs are going to get access to it on September 15th itself, and it's going to show up as though you submitted your application on September 15th. So why would one submit their application early? It's only because that on September 15th, a lot of people submit the application, so the website has a possibility of crashing. And why you shouldn't be risking that is because programs take a look at your application on a first come first serve basis, and if they meet the certain number of candidates, if certain number of candidates meet the requirement, then they're just going to stop taking a look at applications. It doesn't even matter if you have 260, 270, unless you have like a really really amazing profile. So it's best to have your application ready by September 5th. And if you're taking your last step exam in July 5th, if you're taking it around June, July, then it's going to be August to prepare so that your application is ready by September 5th, at least during my year. This year, it's 2020, so there might be a few changes to that. And then from September 15th onwards, they start sending out interview invites rather. And I will talk about that during the interview season video, like the second video that's focused on interview season. And then March 15th is when I got my result, and it's usually mid-March where they declare your results. So this is how the general timeline works. So let's get to what you should be doing after you've taken your final step when it comes to pre-interview preparation, like the pre-interview cycle, what you should be preparing. So one is, if you're done early, like if you're done like in June, early June, or maybe mid June, or even end of June, keep July for like clinical rotations, because any amount of clinical experience helps, and they don't like seeing gaps in your CV. So I had done rotations like I mentioned in June and July. So try to do like gain further clinical experience in June and July. Also, what I did during June and July was when I meant what I meant by passive preparation was, one, I started watching a lot of videos on how to draft a CV in general. It wasn't in particular to medicine or for a residency application. It was just there's a lot of content on YouTube that you should be watching, and even if you're not actively working and writing your CV, you can still get tips from people on YouTube, and they really help, and it's a lot of material that we aren't exposed to in India in particular. So you can get a better idea as to how a CV is, and how you should be working towards preparing your CV and application as well. Also, I read like about easily 15 to 20 personal statements, because again that's another document that we aren't exposed to. So what is the material, how do people usually write their personal statements, what is the content of a personal statement. So I kept reading personal statements on a day-to-day basis. And also I watched a lot of YouTube videos on human psychology and interviews as a whole, because I knew that interview season does require a certain amount of preparation, because I've never interviewed in the past, and I'm also sure that if you're in India, it's highly unlikely that you've been through a formal interview, and more so in America. So I watched a lot of videos on tips on how to interview, and in general, I think I would have watched about 50 to 60 videos easily, and I believe that each video taught me something. So the first thing that you should be doing after you've taken your STEP exam is start passively preparing for your application and as well as for interviews, because you might not be all that enthusiastic to actually sit down and get work done, but at the same time you still do get a bit of like information from these videos that's going to help you later on. So that's what I did in June and July, and I think that really helped me. And so now let me tell you what mistake I made before my application started, basically before ERAS opened. So you need to get ECFMG certified. Rather, you should get ECFMG certified before the ERAS cycle starts on September 5th, because it reflects on your application whether or not you're ECFMG certified. Now, how do you get ECFMG certified is that you have to have taken step 1, CK, CS, and you need ECFMG to have verified your documents. With the documents that they usually verify are like your medical school transcript, your final degree, and I think it's just about these two documents from your medical school that needs to be uploaded onto ECFMG's website. They have a portal, the OASIS portal, and then they take about a month to verify your final, degree and medical education credentials, what they call it. And then it takes about 10 days after you have finished all the requirements to be ECFMG certified. So the mistake that I made was that I took completion in January 2019 as opposed to March 2018. Now, 3 of us applied from Ramaya, and 2 of them got their ECFMG certificate after they got their CS results. So 10 days after they got their CS results, they automatically got their ECFMG certificate. So I was under the assumption that I would be getting my ECFMG certificate after I finish CS and get my result, and 10 days after I'm going to be ECFMG certified. But I didn't realize that they had uploaded the medical education credentials after in April of 2018, basically when they got their degree. And since I took it later, nobody told me that I needed to upload my education credentials on ECFMG's OASIS portal. So this was a really big event for me during my whole path, I would say, and rather was the scariest, because it was only on August 19th when I realized that I need to get my educations verified, and it said that it can take up to a month, and then it said it can take 10 days, it can take up to 10 days after your education credentials are verified to get your certificate. And ERAS was going to open on September 5th, and September 15th is when programs would start looking at applications. So I got super lucky here, and I would recommend you that as soon as you finish your final step, get your final degree, or like if you already have it, upload it, get it verified, and prepare to get ECFMG certified. Somehow or the other, get ECFMG certified in August so that you don't have the stress of it. Because in September, a lot of people apply for the certificate, and it can get very stressful. So yeah, that's one thing that you should be doing. So I'm just going to quickly recap as to what you should be doing as soon as you finish your final step. One is prepare to get ECFMG certified. Two, passively start preparing for your application by watching YouTube videos, reading personal statements of other people, and also reading other people's application and CVs so that you can get an idea of what it's going to be like, how you should be preparing, and also watch videos on YouTube to prepare yourself for the interview season. So this is something that you should be doing June, July time. And so since, the application starts in September, this year it's in October, but like in general, like September. So I'm going to talk about August. So in August is when you should start actively preparing your application. And also another thing that you should be doing in August is preparing your program list. So basically, August is meant for two things broadly. One would be to prepare your program list, and two would be to prepare your application. Both of these activities, I would say, involve a lot of effort because one, your program list has to be catered to you, and you can't really just leech off someone else's program list. You can't just apply to programs that someone else has applied to, because everybody, trust me, has a very unique profile, and I'll tell you how, why you shouldn't be leeching off someone else's profile. At the end of the day, this is something that I'm going to be talking about after interview season. I got a lot of invites from programs, not a lot, but most of my invites are from programs that are known for their cardiology rotations and for their cardiology department and critical care department. And sitting back and retrospectively thinking, it could be that my CV had rotations done in cardiology and critical care as to why they offered me these interviews. I don't know. No one can tell you for sure. But what I'm trying to get at is that they look at everything in your application, and your application is very personal. So you should be looking at programs based on your application. So how I went about my program list is that I'm talking about my program list, by the way, because I worked on my program list before I worked on my application. So what we did was I got in touch with one of my batchmates who was applying as well, and we prepared a spreadsheet, a Microsoft Excel sheet. I've shared that Excel sheet with all of you via email. So take a look at it. It's Frida IM. So we basically looked at, so there were 686 I've applied for internal medicine, so there were 686 internal medicine programs. And so we looked at each of them. And now out of those, about 400 odd were sponsoring visas. Now we didn't want to apply to 400 programs because it's expensive. It costs about, it gets exponentially higher, but after 100 programs, you pay about $26 per program that you apply to. Now let's look at it in Indian rupees. That's almost 1,500 rupees or so. I think more than that. I don't know, but it's $26, and that's a lot of money for one program. So if you're going to apply to 100 programs, it's $2,600. 100 programs after 100, the initial 100. So I applied to 205 programs. We made a spreadsheet of all the programs that were sponsoring visas, which are about 400. So if you look into that Excel sheet, there are about 486 programs as part of that. We looked into whether they were sponsoring J1 visas, H1B visas. We looked into whether or not they had a mandatory clinical experience, which was hands-on, that was required, because a lot of programs require you to have hands-on clinical experience. And mind you, sometimes we do end up doing clerkships, but they're not considered hands-on. And when they mention hands-ons, it's usually more for Caribbean medical grads. And if a program tells you that they have a mandatory, even probably 2 months of clinical experience, which is hands-on, already you should make this notion in your head that they're favoring Caribbean IMGs as opposed to, non-US IMGs. So Yeah, so you should be looking into these criteria. So you should look at whether or not. So the first thing you should look at is whether they sponsor visa or not. I mean, if you don't require a visa, then it's you shouldn't be looking into that criteria. But if you do require a visa, that's the first thing you should be looking at. Step scores, I would say, is very flexible, because again here I made a mistake, and this is the mistake I made. I basically looked at programs that had step score requirements, but that had like something about 220 or 230. Now there were some programs which said that their step score requirement was above 240, but people I knew just applied. And someone with the same profile as me got an interview from UConn and from Bronx Care. These two programs, I know someone, the batchmate that I was working with, Jaydeep. Some of you might recognize him if you're from Ramaya, but we had the same step scores, like, and he got interview invites from them, and I didn't apply to them because I thought my step scores weren't good enough. And I don't know. I wouldn't say that there were other parts of his application that really helped him get that interview, but the general notion is that step scores are very flexible when it comes to as a criteria requirement. So I wouldn't take it very I wouldn't rate it very high when it comes to whether or not you're going to apply or not. Just apply to a program if you think that you have a shot at it. Look at clinical experience and visas. That's something. If a program says it doesn't sponsor visas, they're not going to be flexible with that. So and based on that 486 program list, I wanted to narrow down to 200. So I actually looked up the individual website of each of those 200 programs. So it can take a lot of time. You're going to have to be very systematic, organized, and it's not like something that you're going to do in like 1 or 2 days. You're gonna have to do this over a period of time, and start early. Like if you can start in June or July as well. I started in August, but divide it into 10 or 20 programs every day, and then look up each of their websites, see what the program is known for. If you have a strong application and interest in, say, for example, critical care, then the program usually highlights that on their website, and make sure you apply to those kind of programs because you have a better shot there. So I applied to 200 programs, and normally the normal number of programs that IMGs apply to is anywhere between 150 and 200. So it depends on you how many programs you want to apply to, and you're going to make your program list accordingly. I also shared with you all another document which has my programs divided based on state, and green and yellow. So green meant that I had a good shot at that program. Yellow was a long shot. I was just okay, let's apply, let's see what happens, maybe not. So how do you usually look up programs? Now that's something that's going to come to your head as well. Now you gotta know and get I would say acquainted with these websites that have they're rather databases. So the most common database that people look up is FRIDA. So FRIDA is like a database which is regulated by programs themselves. What that means is that they update the information on FRIDA. So a lot of it is usually up to date, and you get a decent amount of information on FRIDA about each program. You'll get to know how many slots they have, how many interview invites they give each year, and the salary, and what the residents do after their residency, and how many paid physician spots they have, and they even give you a decent amount of information about what your inpatient rotation is going to be like, outpatient rotation is going to be like. So I would say, and also the visa requirement. So, and you can also get contact information from these programs. So how Jaydeep and me went about it is, first we made our base list of that 486 which I've shared with you all from FRIDA. That's why it's called FRIDA IM. And what we did was we made that Excel sheet with the program name, with whether or not they sponsor visas, the contact information of the program director, contact information of the program coordinator. This is important later because you're going to communicate with programs and you'll need this information then. The number of letter of recommendations, whether or not hands-on clinical experience was needed, and a separate column for additional comments. I don't know, comments like, it's not coming to the top of my head right now, but like, okay, we prefer US grads or something like that. And we always like, or like some comment we got from someone, like someone would tell us that Jacobi is a competitive program, so like just put a note on it. So you'll see some random comments in that column. That's how we went about our base list. Honestly, it took us a long time to make that list, and it almost took us a month. It went up till the end of August, just working on that list. The first list, the first draft, took all of August, and of course that was not all we were doing, but like a significant chunk of what we were doing in August was making this base list. And then after that, we basically, he went his way, I went my way. We made our own list. I made my list based on states, because certain states are IMG friendly, and also where you do your rotations matter, because if you've done a lot of rotations in New York, then New York programs will favor you. It is a known fact. So I wanted to apply to more programs in New York. I wanted to apply to more programs in the East Coast, of course. And for us, they removed the California license that initially, the previous years, you needed to get it beforehand. But then again, like California has only about like 4 or 5 IMG friendly programs, so it doesn't make a big difference. But what I'm trying to say is that divide your list and make it, further organize it either based on states or based on, use your own criteria. I use states, and then I mark them as green and yellow. And then there's another site that I use to cross-reference. It's called Residency Explorer. You should check it out as well. They are in association with ERAS. So what this website does is you need to feed in your credentials, your USMLE scores, your clinical experience, and what else do you feed in that? You feed in basically basic information and your volunteer experiences, research experience. And then it'll give you a list of all the programs and your chance of matching into that program and how you stand compared to the current residents of that program. So, for example, Grosser Chester was like a 94% match rate for me. It said that I would match 94% into this program, and then they told me like my, USMLE step 1 score is in between like in the 75 percentile of the residents that are there. I honestly wish I had someone who could edit this video and I could show you all of that. And I'm not tech savvy, so I'm just going to be speaking, and I hope that this information is helpful. But what I'm trying to tell you is that once you log on to Residency Explorer, you're going to get a great idea as to what the website's about, and so do check that out and make a list based on that. And then in the end, when you have like your separate list from Frida that you've color coded and you've divided it or like classified it based on states, you can compare this Residency Explorer. Because what I did was I made one list, and then the main Frida 486 one, and then I subdivided that based on states, and then I just compared that with the Residency Explorer list and just made sure that all the programs that were at least in the top 200 of Residency Explorer were part of my final list. And then in the end, I called Jaideep. I knew about 4 or 5 people applying to internal medicine. I called all of them. We cross-verified our lists, and I noted down programs that they applied to, I didn't apply to. For example, I mentioned Bronx and Yukon I hadn't applied to. And then Jaideep didn't apply to a few programs like Suburban Community Hospital because he just didn't want to go there. And I was like, okay, I'll go interview there. Let's see. I mean, I didn't end up getting an interview from any of them, but whatever. But, just cross-verify your list. So August goes a lot working on your list, and that's how I basically went about it. So I would recommend that you first use Frida, then you use Residency Explorer. There are paid websites. Doximity is one, gives you a great amount of information, but it's paid, and I just didn't feel the need to pay and use the service for my program list. So I didn't use Doximity, but you can check Doximity out. So that's how you could go about your list, and that's how I would recommend you to go about your list. And I mentioned to you that the mistakes I made, one was I didn't apply to programs based on my USMLE score requirement. So don't do that. Like, just apply to IMG friendly programs. Like Yukon is very well known, and they throw out invites to many people. I don't know if they would, match you or not, but if they give you an interview invite, you do have a good shot. So just apply to as many programs as you can. I would say anywhere between 150 and 200 programs. Make sure your program list is at least the second draft is ready by end of August, because on September 5th you should have, like, this year is different, but on September 5th you should have your program list ready, and it should be, and then between September 5th to September 10th you can add programs in ERAS, and then you dedicate your documents to each of those programs, and then on September 15th just shoot, like, at one shot, just send your application to all your programs and then burn a hole in your pocket. It'll be like, I spent $4,800 on September 15th at 11 a.m. I remember, because I applied to 200 programs. That was the cost. So yeah, that's how you could go about it. Just make sure your list is ready by September 10th, September 15th. Okay, so now that I spoke about the program list, that was just half of the work that you're going to be doing during August. What the other half of the work is your application. You're going to be working on your application. So before I talk about the application, let me just clarify a few terms that that we use very loosely. A lot of you, I'm sure, have a good understanding about these terms, but let me just do it for completion's sake and just for clarity. So there's ECFMG, there's ERAS, and then there's NRMP. And then I mentioned what FRITA was. So these are certain terms that are used very loosely, and sometimes, early in your preparation phase, you might even not know. You'll see people talking about FRITA and be like, what the hell is that? Or like, NRMP, ERAS, all of it can get overwhelming if you don't know exactly what they're about. So ECFMG is Education Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates, and this is a board in the US. They have like multiple responsibilities. So their main responsibilities, I would say, one is to certify international medical graduates. So that's why I mentioned that the first thing you should be doing after, finishing your final step exam is to get ECFMG certified. So that's the first role that ECFMG has. They also regulate your application for USMLE. So every time you apply for a step exam, you do go through ECFMG, through their online portal, the OASIS portal. The second role that ECFMG has is they are sponsors for the J1 visa. Now, I'll talk about the visas in the third video, but basically the J1, to get a J1 visa, you need a body to sponsor it, and ECFMG is our sponsor. So that is their second role, and this is the more important role, I would say. I mean, can't really compare roles of theirs, but it is a very important role, and they basically sponsor visas for us, and they also make sure that our education is equivalent to that of the US grad. So that's why once you get ECFMG certified, you go from MBBS to MD, and now they refer to me as MD. Every time I get an email from ECFMG, they call me Viren Raheja MD. So yeah, that's cool, but yeah, that's their job. So that's about ECFMG, and what you should know about ECFMG. They have nothing to do with your application cycle as a whole. They are a separate entity by itself. Now, what is ERAS? What is NRMP? ERAS is Electronic Residency Application System. It's basically a software which is developed by the AAMC and then the AOA, and then there are like a lot of bodies that are together. The Osteopathic Association, the medical colleges, and then American Medical Association, AMA. So all of these guys have come up with an electronic portal where you can send applications to any hospital as part of their database. And like I mentioned to you, there are about 686 for internal medicine. So you type in you first take a token, you pay for a token, and then you can you get a profile, I would say, on ERAS. And this profile has 4 or 5 categories, sub profiles. I don't know the term, but you'll see it once you take your ERAS token and you get an ERAS profile. You'll see that one has your demographic information, one has for your documents, one is programs, and one is interviews. So there are 4. So interviews we'll talk about later, but as part of your profile that you get on ERAS, you're going to have to fill in your demographic details, and this can be changed even after you certify your application. So once you certify your application, you cannot change the other parts of your application other than your personal information. And the document portals. So now this is where all the documents I shared with come into play. So the document portal consists of one, your letter of recommendations. You can upload as many letter of recommendations as you want to, but you can submit only a maximum of 4 to a program. It consists of your personal statement. It consists of your USMLE transcript. It consists the other documents are the medical school transcript and your MSPE. So these are the documents that you can upload onto your ERAS portal and submit to programs. So let's go about them one step at a time. I'll come back to these documents because I want to talk about each of them in detail. After that, you've got your interviews, your program list, which I told you that it should be made separately on an Excel sheet and Word documents, and make sure you have your finalists, and then just add each of those programs on your just add them onto your ERAS portal, so that on September 15th you have all of them. And there's a button to dedicate documents to them. So once your documents are ready, you can allocate them to all your programs, and then send out all of it at once. And interviews we'll talk about later, the interview subsection. So yeah, let's talk about now your demographic, because that's the first section. In that, make sure that your address is of US. You have a US address, whether or not you are staying. You are going to be staying in India for I don't know how you're going to go about interview season, but on your ERAS application, 100% you need to have an US. You should rather use a US address and use a US phone number, and the US phone number goes in brackets 531-646-4000. So that's how you're going to type in your phone number. I've seen multiple people use I didn't use 9844120113. I could have, and most people do that. And you're applying to the US. Why would you use a Indian number? No one's gonna want to contact you in India. And also the address, don't use the Indian address. Just make your profile as close as it can be to an American grad's profile. So US phone number, US address, and the best part is you can keep changing. So even if you're moving around, you can change your address. And mind you, in one of my interviews at Maimonides, I was staying there during my observership. The program director he spoke to me about my address. He's like, man, you've stayed here itself, and you must have a good idea about this area. And I was like, yeah. And then we spoke about the open squash court in that area, and yeah. So make sure that you have a US address in general. So that's all that I would want to give you tips when it comes to your demographic information on your application. So when it comes to the documents now, you have your personal statement. So personal statement, what exactly is this document? It's a document that reflects who you are as a person. That's why it's called a personal statement. And programs take a look at your personal statement before interview season? Very, very, very unlikely, because they get about, on an average, a program gets, if it's a good program, it would get about 5,000 applications, and they give about 300 or to 400, depending on the number of candidates they have. 300 to 400 is if it's a big program. If it's a small program, they get about, I would say, 3,000 to 4,000 applications, and they give out about 150 interviews. So the general notion is that they give out 10 interview invites for one slot. So if the program has 15 slots, then they would be giving out 150 interviews. And so if it's a big university program like SUNY, then they have 77 spots, and they give out a lot more interview invites. So yeah. So personal statement, they're not going to take a look at 5,000 personal statements. So what they do is that they print out your personal statement after you get invited for an interview, and then they go through it. And then a lot of people start off with your personal statement, or it's basically an introduction before even meeting you. So how important is it? Then it is super important, because it's you introducing yourself even before meeting the person that's going to interview you. And believe me, when it comes to human psychology, first impressions and last impressions are the most important aspects of your interview. So if someone's reading your personal statement and it's haphazardly written, then their first impression of you is already bad. So what should you include in your personal statement? So this is the information that I've got from like webinars, the like webinars that I took a look at in on the ECFMG portal, the Echo website, and then there were MRE clerkship, USMLE Sarthi, and then I read a lot of blogs by like seniors and people who've matched in the past. So this is what I got of what your personal statement should contain. Your personal statement firstly should be unique and it should be reflective of who you are as a person. So firstly, read as many personal statements as you can and realize how you're going to make your personal statement unique. Because for me, what I chose to do was I chose to start with a story because I believe strongly in storytelling, and I think that's a good way to capture someone's attention is to start with a story. So if you read my personal statement, you'll notice that the initial part is a story. So it shouldn't be some random story. It should be something relevant. So this is how I broke it down. It should talk about who you are as a person. It should talk about why you chose medicine as a field, as a career path. Why you're choosing to apply in that particular field. For me, it was internal medicine. What are the attributes of you that make you fit to be an internist, and what aspects of your personality complements your career choice, which is medicine as well as internal medicine, or like if it's peds, then pediatrics. Why are you applying to that program? Now, this is something because I didn't do this. I didn't make personalized personal statements for each program, but I know people who've done this, so it's up to you. Like if you're going to talk about New York, you can say that, hey, like I had this experience in this hospital in New York. I realized that medicine is practiced in New York in this particular way. The population is diverse. The demographics you see whatever, or like I would say like, okay, I worked in a hospital in Brooklyn. I saw a lot of infectious diseases coming from India. I've been exposed to infectious diseases a lot, and I believe that I would adapt well into this hospital system. So it's up to you whether you want to make personalized personal statements for each program, or you're gonna make a generic personal statement and then send it out to all programs. And also what distinguishes your application and you as a person from other applicants. This is super important. Notice in the end I mentioned that my ethnicity is something that's unique to me, not Indian. Of course, if you tell them that you're Indian, and that's like stupid, but I just told them that my community, there are not many doctors. I don't know. I felt like that's a unique aspect about me, so I wanted to put it there. And also that I've worked in rural parts of India. I've been exposed to medicine in Netherlands. I've been exposed to medicine in the US. I've worked in the corporate setup in India. So I have a diverse background of like medical experience. This is what I felt like made me unique as a candidate. So somehow come up with like unique aspects about you in your personal statement. So just to quickly summarize, your personal statement should talk about who you are as a person, why you chose medicine, why you chose your particular field of interest, what are the characteristics that complement you in that particular field, and what distinguishes you as a candidate as a whole. So, and how important and how much of effort should you be giving to your personal statement? All of your effort, because don't compromise on this one document, because almost every interviewer that I interviewed with read my personal statement. So work hard on it, even though it might not get you more interviews. Super important document. Okay, so now let's not go talk more about the personal statement. Let's move on to the USMLE transcript. Is an easy document. It just, you pay a certain fee and then it gets released. That's how programs look at your scores. So you won't even look at your USMLE transcript. You just make sure that it's ready. ECFMG releases it to ERAS and then it automatically gets sent to programs. So step 1, CS and CK, and that's about it. You don't have to do anything. Just pay $80 or something for it and it gets released. Okay, so simple. The next document is your medical school transcript in MSPE. What are these documents? Medical school transcript, I'm sure each of you have applied for clerkships. You've taken a look at what it looks like. It's basically your marks. And now, your medical school has an ERAS and ECFMG, profile by themselves. So, like Ramaya, for example, has their own profile with ECFMG and with ERAS. So, these two documents you should ideally not be uploading, because if you have uploaded your document, that reflects to the program that it does show up that you have uploaded this document, and that your medical school is not tied up with ECFMG or ERAS. And that can be a big issue, because a lot of programs don't want to just experiment with new medical schools. So yeah, I think this had an impact on. So I know someone with much higher scores than me that got way fewer interviews than me, and when we were discussing as to what the issue could be, I don't know. It's just that I felt like this could have had a role to play. Nobody can tell you anything for certain, but all I'm telling you is, if your medical school does not have a profile on ECFMG or EDAS, it's called something. There's a technical term for it. Create one for them and upload your documents through them. And I'm sure like most people that are viewing this video are in KIMS or like in Ramaya. Yeah, in general, like I know both these medical schools at least do have this portal. So my own brother had uploaded these documents by himself the first time he applied. So this is something that I think is very crucial, that you should be getting your medical school to upload these two documents. Okay, so transcript is a simple document. It's just your marks, and what they ideally want to look at. They don't care about Indian marks, by the way. It's relevant for a US grad, because they know their system and they know like their grades and whatever. So it doesn't really have much of weightage for us. Now, what is your MSP? It's called a Medical School Performance Evaluation. I've shared with each of you like a sample MSP. This is I would say an performance report of you, which is technically supposed to be a relative sheet. It's supposed to compare your performance to other medical students in your particular class, and it usually consists of clerkship grades. It consists of graphs, and look at the ACGME 2017 guidelines on how to draft an MSP. Now, my college, Ramaya, basically told us to, that they're not going to follow ACGME, and they're like, we've been making our own MSP from the past how many ever years. People have matched in the past, so shut up and just take what we're giving you. And okay, so I basically made a group and got in touch with every applicant that was applying from Ramaya, and we wrote petitions to them to say, look, man, like, give us a ACGME accredited, MSP, which is fitting in their guidelines. And then we kind of realized it was a lot of work on our end itself, because we would have to have drafted graphs, and then we had to come up with clerkship grades, which we didn't have. So we thought, okay, let's use our clinical those Viva marks and whatever the assessments we get. And then finally we came to a consensus that we would use our internship by random. We would get some marks at the end of our internship book. That after the rotation in that department, you go and they give you some random marks, and then we thought we'll use that. And we used it. And then also, on your first page, you should have like 3 characteristics of you, unique characteristics about you in 2 lines each. Go through this ACGME guidelines, and before you draft your MSP, it consists of your MSP as a whole consists of your rotations in each department, and also what your professors have spoken about you, and in paragraphs. So pediatrics, you can write up. If you read the MSP that I've shared, you'll see he's good with kids. He don't mention the same thing for every department. He's punctual, he's hardworking. Don't ever use generic terms. Generic sentences are looked down upon. They'll do you more harm than good. Just saying that this guy is hardworking. Well, everybody is gonna say that. Try to make I'll tell you when it comes to the letter of recommendations how to draft or speak about yourself. Personally and uniquely. But your MSP basically consists of your analysis and your performance report in each rotation that you've done during internship. It also consists of your dates. So you've done clinical rotations in medicine from this month, from this start date to this end date. So you're gonna have to get your internship completion certificate. It can take up to 2 or 3 days to draft your MSP. If you sit down to it and get at it and work at it. But otherwise, it can take longer if you're gonna just keep a little time for it every day. So yeah, make sure that your MSP is ready. and get your dean has to sign it. So I know that it's gonna take a lot of running around and like begging and whatever. You know how it works. So yeah, start early basically. By early August, make sure you start working on the MSP. By end of August, make sure it's ready, because your school has to upload these two documents, your transcript and your MSP. What is the relevance of this document again? Again, it's something important for American grads, not for us. But well, just give your 100% to everything you're doing. So like work at it, make sure it's good, and it's foolproof. Compare it with your the other people that have applied from your medical school, and make sure that all of you have the same MSP format at least. Because come on, man, if you upload one MSP and then someone from your program uploads a different format from the same medical school, and you apply to the same program, and then they take a look at your application and they're like, what the hell, two people from Ramaya have different MSPs, then they're going to get really suspicious, maybe not give both of you an interview, maybe even report you. So yeah, America is very strict when it comes to all of these things. So make sure that you're submitting an MSP, because we actually made groups and WhatsApp groups and made sure that each of us had the same MSP format. So that's important again. Yeah, so I don't think I'm going to speak more about about your MSP and transcript. These are two simple documents, and they can take a lot of time because it involves your medical school, and we know how slow they are. So work early on them. Okay, let's go to letter of recommendations. So you can upload, like I mentioned, as many letter of recommendations as you want to, but you can submit only 4 to each program. And if you're applying to, like, say, internal medicine, then you can. I uploaded 2 internal medicine rotations, 1 critical care, 1 cardiology, and 2 of them let me draft my own LORs. And this is something I can talk about, like because I read up how to make a good LOR, how to draft a good LOR. So okay, let me like give you an example, because it'll help you understand better as to what I'm trying to get across to you. Okay, Viren is punctual, hardworking, and friendly. Okay, now if you write this sentence as part of your LOR, it sounds super generic. It's like, okay, Viren is hardworking, punctual, and friendly. How can you make this personal? I'll tell you. So Viren came early on his first day of his rotation. He introduced himself to the other medical students who were part of this rotation, and I noticed that they started talking about their mutual interest in football, and I noticed him speaking to X or Y person for like 10 minutes about football, and he got along well with him. I also noticed that they started speaking about their schedule. So that is reflecting you as punctual because you've come early, and then it's personal. Like they've seen you, that the doctor's seen you come early, and then he's also narrating an experience he's had with you. And when it comes to hardworking, you gotta have to make it sound like as though I gave him a presentation to talk about depression, and then he put in a lot of effort into this presentation, and he went the extra mile to get the recent DSM-5 criteria, blah blah. Like, make it super personal, like as though you're explaining a very something that they've experienced in particular with you, because then it sounds convincing that the letter has been written by this doctor, and this doctor has properly analyzed you as a person. There are 6 core ACGME. I don't know what it is like. One is like system-based learning, and the core principles, or rather what they. So in residency, you're assessed based on these 6 criteria. There's system-based learning. There's intercommunication skills, interpersonal skills, or whatever. I just looked this up, and you're at least incorporate like 3 or 4 of them in your letter of recommendation. Like, for example, Viren, he would put IV lines if it's a hands-on rotation, and he would practice IV lines every day, and he was very enthusiastic about this. So I can assess that his practice-based learning is appropriate, and he's enthusiastic about it. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. That these core values or principles or whatever it's called, make sure that you look that up and incorporate 2 or 3 of them. I apologize, it's been a while since I've worked on my letter of, almost a year. It's been a year since I've worked on my letter of recommendation. Also, LORs uploaded by your letter writers, don't go ahead and upload your letter of recommendation by yourself. Even if your letter of recommendation is from India, make sure that it's uploaded by your professor. I uploaded one internal medicine letter from India because I don't know. I just don't know. I just wanted to do it. Even though I had like internal medicine core clerkship letter, but I didn't know what was the content of it, and I just knew what I wrote my own letter from India, and I knew that sometimes they would value a letter from someone that you worked with in your home country as well over just a 1 month rotation. So yeah, I chose to upload like a letter from India, and make sure that your letter of recommendations are uploaded before September. Like, you can't upload it before September, I would say, because ERAS opens only on September 5th. But make sure your letter writers are aware, and they're like, when you send them the email on September 5th, between September 5th and September 10th, they you send them the link, and then they're going to upload your letter. So work on that. That's super important, that your letters are on time. You upload your letters on time. So that's another document that you get to allocate. So quickly recapping, it's your personal statement, your MSP transcript, USMLE transcript, and your letter of recommendations, which are additional documents that you allocate to each of these individual programs and send them out on September 15th. So personal statements and letter of recommendations are something that you can choose to allocate based on programs. Like MSP and transcript goes to all your programs, the same MSP and transcript. USMLE transcript also goes to all programs. But personal statements, like I mentioned, like if you are applying to a program in New York, then you can maybe modify it. If you're applying to a program that's that's known for cardiology, then you can twist and turn your your personal statement, and send a personalized letter to them. A lot of programs. So this is something I didn't speak to you about when I was talking about the program list, but it can help you. In the US, they have programs divided as university programs, university affiliated programs, and community programs. So what is this university program and community program? It's basically, university programs have their own medical schools, and even if they don't have their own medical schools, they are academically focused. They have a lot of academics going on in these programs, and usually university programs are big programs, and they have tertiary care centers as their teaching hospitals. What is a tertiary care center? You're going to have to look that up. Like, they have all specialities, and then they have like their referral centers community programs are like just hospitals. And then again, community programs, you have primary care, categorical. Primary care is like your elective rotations are core internal medicine or core pediatrics, and if it's categorical, then you can have like subspecialties as part of it. So what is the difference between this university program and community programs? University programs, of course, you'll have more, you'll have a good amount of didactics, they call it, like your classes and your academics are better in university programs. Not necessarily you'll see more patients in university hospitals, but they prefer, the thing is, university programs prefer fresh grads, and they prefer people who have strong profiles in research and have a CV that's screaming, academics. So why is this important is because, and why did I bring this up here, is if you send out a personal statement, say to a community program, and tell them, hey, I want to come to the US because I want to do research, and I want to, I have a strong background in research, and I'm interested in, I love teaching, so I want to become an academic hospitalist. The community program would be like, why are you like applying to our program? Because that's not what their program is meant for. Their program is meant for clinical medicine. It's not meant for research. Community programs don't care that much about research, and more so, community programs want you to pursue a field and keep you there like after you finish residency. If you want to become an academic hospitalist, or you want to choose a career path in teaching, and then you do your training in a community program, then it doesn't fit. And it's common sense that if in your personal statement you mention all of this and submit it to a community program, maybe they might not see it before giving an interview, but when you go there to interview, they're going to be like, what is this guy, like he doesn't fit here. And trust me when I tell you this, it's about the best fit, it's not about the best candidate. They're looking for the best fit. And yeah, so if you're going to send out, if you're going to, you can also like make personalized personal statements for community programs and university programs and send them separately. Again, this was a lot of work, and trust me, when you start working, I don't mean to be negative or to not motivate you, but when you have 200 programs, you're going to have to allocate them into university, community, work on 2 different personal statements. And I don't know, I just didn't have it in me in August to, there was a lot of stuff that needed to get done, and I couldn't do it. Basically, I'm going to be honest, I couldn't do it. That I couldn't get myself to work on 2 different personal statements and submit them to university programs and community programs. Yeah, but in short, this is something that you can do. And yeah, how you can interview in university programs, and when you make your rank order list, that's like the post interview thing. I'll talk about that when we reach there. But yeah, just talking about, so your program list, this has an implication in your program list, as well as it has implication in your personal statement. And yeah, USMLE transcript, you don't do anything again, and then your MSP and stuff gets allocated to the programs as a whole. Yeah, so September 15th, I submitted. September 12th, I submitted my application, and that was about it. I mean, I had to wait for interviews, and I'll talk about interview season in the next video, and when you should be expecting interviews. Like how you should be preparing for your interviews, and what are the intricate details of interview season that we don't really know about. What I learned from interview season in the next video. So I hope it was a lot of information, and just one person speaking for 1 hour. I don't know, just break it down, watch this video in bits and pieces. But all the information that I've given you guys was from what I've gathered from my own experience, what I got from blogs, like I mentioned, USMLE Sarthi, AmeriClerkships, and the Facebook forum, 2020 forum. And yeah, so it is relevant. The information that I've given you, I mean, not relevant. I mean, it's correct, I would say. And yeah, I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video.